think one of the biggest complaints of this era of television has been the massive gaps we seem to be getting between seasons these days. In the good old days, at the peak of Game of Thrones, we were getting quality, proper premium TV of 10-episode seasons, 40 minutes to an hour apiece, year after year after year. Those were truly the good old days. It allowed you to settle into a routine. It didn't let the hype cool off too much and kept you invested year after year. Nowadays, though, it's just a whole different story. I mean, just take a look at the likes of House of the Dragon. It came in hot with a whole lot of hype behind it and was a successful season. Then season 2 took 2 years to come out, and with plotting pacing where not much happened, it achieved little overall. Now apparently we're settling in for a good 3 years until season 3. I truly think that we're going to see interest fall off a cliff. It already felt more subdued in the second season, so I suppose I'll have to wait and see what happens next. For me personally, my interest in the world of Westeros continues to wane due to these waits. But at least we have a new show to take a look at, I suppose. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I've been waiting quite a while for this show, to tell you the truth. Part of me thought that it would be coming rather quickly if they wanted some more Westeros content, since, besides the main books, it's the only actual full-length story in the world. The source for House of the Dragon is, after all, written as an in-universe history book with multiple interpretations of a number of key events, and so it's a little bit more of a difficult subject to build your story around if you ask me, which I think they're finding out now. Dunk and Egg, however, is a largely lighthearted series of short adventures that can strike a fun balance between that grim, gritty Westeros vibe and a more lighthearted knightly adventure. Before we dive any further into some discourse around the show and whatnot, I guess we'd better take a look at the trailer. I do have a bit of knowledge of the franchise, and so there will be some mild spoilers ahead. We start off the trailer with a look at Sir Duncan as he buries his former Nightmaster Sir Arlen of Pennytree in the rain. When I first saw the shot, I was a little bit apprehensive, to tell you the truth. Having read through the entire series of books, I do think that it comes across a lot warmer than the mainline series. It has a vibe that reminds me of the start of a Game of Thrones before it all goes to shit with war and whatnot. Thus, I was hoping for colour, not just in the clothing and the banners. After all, colour was not invented in the 20th century, and kings and lords love to peacock around, I'm sure, but in the way it's filmed. Yes, this section where the rain's all around him is awesome, but I'm just so over the muted, grey world they seem to inhabit. I need some warmth and colour, pronto. Luckily, it does seem as if subsequent scenes do give it a little bit more brightness that makes it feel a lot more alive, a lot more joyful and upbeat. We have a few shots of Dunk doing his thing. He buries his Nightmaster, he rides through the fields in a shot that honestly reminded me quite a lot of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies, to tell you the truth, and also practices with his sword. As this is going on, we get some voiceover from the man himself. For starters, it's nice to have a character whose voice sounds a bit different for a change. The actor's Irish, and they haven't got him doing some received pronunciation nobility voice. It just helps him stand apart from the crowd in that way. He talks about how he'd squired for Sir Arlen since he was a little boy, and that he taught him to be a good knight who defends the weak and innocent, and that he swore that he would. At last, we have a protagonist in this jaded world that is actually a straight-up good person. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of characters of dubious morality and anti-heroes and the like, but if everybody's like that, it loses its shine. It's gotten to the point that now, it seems like for this franchise, the opposite's true. It's the paragons of good and the defenders of virtue that are the outlier characters, and thus they become more interesting and special as a result, because you see them try to survive in a world that is not made for people that think like they do. It's often really intriguing, and I like that they show you what kind of man he is right off the bat. We then get a look at him arriving at the tourney at Ashford and getting suited up in some armor. I love that he looks so cheaply clad here. Once again, he's that outlier character. The franchise always makes you follow the upper crust characters, with the lower classes treated as less than nothing and of no interest to the story overall for the most part. Yeah, there are a few characters here and there, but they're not really the leads. I think in a way this makes him one of the more interesting protagonists the franchise has had. A random peasant who is also trying to be a good person and do what's right for the people, rather than trying to win a throne and be overly selfish about his goals and agendas. We see him putting on his helmet, as a voice asks whether he's Bael or Targaryen. The scene then cuts to a stable where he says no, and of course he's then told to move out of the way. I love how he's so clumsy and awkward with the way he's talking to people, all stuttery and unsure. He really comes across as massively endearing here. He's going to be an extremely popular character with a casual fan base. I have no doubt about that. We then get our first look at the second member of our double act, Egg, aka Prince Aegon Targaryen. This kid looks the part, I tell you what. He has the perfect appearance. A really sweet, innocent face and a great voice too. It really does seem that for both the two lead characters, they've managed to cast them perfectly. They have some fun banter here where Egg makes fun of Sir Duncan for being a complete nobody whilst at his campfire, and then after, when he offers to squire for him and look after his horse, and Dunk tells him that if he tries to rob him, he's gonna hunt him down with dogs. And when confronted with the fact that he has no dogs and no ability to get any dogs to do the hunting, he just barks at him to try to scare him. Having met our leads, we then then start to see some of the plot take shape. We see a Targaryen royal party arrive at Ashford and get our first proper look at the main antagonist of the first season, Egg's older brother Aerion, who honestly the trailer sort of underplays, I think. From what I remember, the actual character in the story is a real psycho, but here he just comes across as a bit of an arrogant prick. I like that they kind of bury the lead a bit like this. I think it's going to make his character all the more hateable if the audience is seeing it play out for the first time when watching the show, as opposed to seeing it in the trailer and thus not having that same visceral feeling they had before. I also really like the new Targaryen banner they have here with the addition of the long red wings. Just a good bit of fun. So Aerion rides into the castle and tells Dunk to stop gaping and to stable his horse, to which Dunk replies that he's not a stable boy. Aerion looks him over once and asks whether that's because he isn't clever enough to be a stable boy, just slapping him down. I also love that we have another short-haired Targaryen at last. I feel like too often they just default to having that same sort of look, many of them just based off the design of Viserys from Game of Thrones Season 1. The short-haired look that Matt Smith had for like an episode or two in the first season of House of the Dragon went very hard, and this one works too. He just has a really good design and a very, very punchable face, so I'm eager to see more. We have a look at what seems to be a puppet show with a very realistic dragon puppet there. Have to ask though, is that a little too realistic? How the hell is some random traveling troupe going to have access to a hyper-realistic puppet in this day and age? I guess that's something we'll have to chalk up the rule of cool. He makes eye contact with Tanzel, who's the puppeteer and his sort of love interest for season 1, whilst his narration plays over the top about how he knows he's a hedge knight, but that he thinks he could be something more than that. Of course, that message of hope comes crashing down to earth with a scene of Dunk talking to the steward of the castle, who I guess interrupts him to hock up a big glob of spit into the tankard, which is just lovely. Ugh. Also, this guy has the absolute best facial expressions for sure, doesn't he? Once again, it's kind of crazy to see our major POV character is going to be so low on the totem pole. It's like when we followed Arya when she was walking through the battle zones, except this guy isn't some secret noble. He is always going to be looked down on and treated like shit. I have to say that Dunk also has this great face too. He's particularly expressive. He's a bit like a dog, really. He's got massive golden retriever vibes when he's happy, and then sad basset hound eyes when people are treating him badly. We have a look at the tourney, and I'm really glad they're going out of their way to make the heraldry obvious and distinct between all the major houses. It's something that's sometimes lost across the other shows, particularly Game of Thrones, where they mostly just show everybody in a specific region wearing the same stuff, with the same banners. Once again, this just seems much more lively. It's so different from the other shows. Even the peasants going to watch the game seem to have more vibrant colours. They're not in some variation of a potato sack. I'm seeing that a lot of love has been put into the visual side of things and making the world come to life in a really exciting way. I hope the writing's able to do the same. Little Egg asks Dunk why he treats the royal lapdogs as if they're his betters, to which Dunk replies that they are his betters. Once again, I'm just really enjoying the dynamic on display here. Egg's so indignant that his new friend's just accepting being shat on by the high and mighty. And I suppose that's just going to be part of the story, isn't it? Coming to terms with the fact that the way he experiences the world is wholly different as a prince, and Dunk can't just go around pissing off anybody he chooses, as we see when he ends up in a trial for his life. We have yet another look at Aerion, who just looks hateable, like a classic Joffrey-style villain. On looks alone, this guy really does seem like the perfect casting. We get a look at Lord Baratheon, complete with a fancy helmet with massive antlers on it. And I'll be honest, when I read the books and learnt that they wear antlered helmets like this, I considered it very fantasy and kind of silly. After all, in the middle of a battle, could you not just grab the antler and tug on it to throw them off balance? Could it not get stuck if you end up grappling? Rule of cool strikes again. I will say though that I am glad they're sticking with it for the show. I'm just glad to see the characters wearing helmets too. That always bothered me. I mean, nobody's looking for facial expressions for most of the big battles in Game of Thrones. Give me blood and gore. The helmets just add to it and make it seem more realistic. I mean, what idiot would ride into battle with archers and potentially stray weapons going any which way and not wear a helmet? Or even full armor if you can afford it. Jon Snow's in shambles. We have a look at two knights, I think from House Fossaway, judging by their apple, training in the yard. I did not like this. Felt very choreographed. Turning away from his opponent and blocking a blow without looking, then kicking the poor dude through a fence, snapping the plank with ease. For starters, I feel like a training yard would probably have a sturdy fence, so this felt kind of dumb. Not looking forward to that scene. After getting the realism of using actual helmets and proper full kit armor, to see some Star Wars bullshit was a bit of a shame. I know it's a bit goofy to want ultra realism in my fantasy show, but this is the most real the world ever gets. No dragons, no ice zombies, just a hedge knight and his squire trying to survive, so I guess I was hoping to see that reflected a little bit more. We see Dunk having a chat with Lord Baratheon, asking him what chance he has, with the answer being that he has no chance. So clearly, this is going to be after he ends up facing down a trial by combat against Aerion, who then turns it into a trial by 7, and thus Dunk has to go out in search of allies, before we see the origin of Dunk's sigil, when he sees a shooting star when he's camping with Egg, who tells him it means luck to those who see it. I tell you what though, this shield that he has, so awesome and vibrant. It is such a good sigil now that I'm looking at it, and it really stands out in the smoky/misty tourney ground when they're about to do that trial. We see Dunk stride out to meet his fate, with Aerion armored up, and his armor's cool, and I really love the dragon helmet. A lot of the Targaryen helmets for me have not hit the mark previously, but this one looks really good. I'm really glad they're not afraid to wear visored helmets to obscure the face. Even in House of the Dragon, they just have those nose guard type helms, which I feel like you wouldn't wear if you were this rich. No one wants to get killed in battle. I think The Mandalorian proved you don't need to see the face to feel the emotion of a scene, or to know who the people are. Plus, it lets you use actual stunt guys, and that could make the action a little bit better. There are some more fairground antics. We see the really realistic puppet complete with fire breathing. We see Dunk's team lining up for the trial by 7, which looks pretty awesome. We see some jousting and action from what seems to be in the midst of the trial. We have Baratheon giving him a pep talk, Egg cheering him on and telling him to get up, which I presume is going to be during the final duel with Aerion. And we just see a whole lot more action. Hell yeah, it looks like they've hit it out of the park with this trailer. That final shot of them all riding together into the mist, it goes so hard. I think this show has a really good chance to be really well received, although you can really see the downturn of popularity of the franchise as a whole, which I'd have to attribute to the lengthy delays and just bad writing from other projects turning people off. I mean, when I wrote this trailer, it had been out for a week and was currently trying to close in on 5 million views on YouTube. Checking it right now, it's on 4.7, and obviously it still has time to play before the views really start to plateau out, but the reality is, it's not going to hit the same heights the franchise has managed before. This is the official teaser. The House of the Dragon Season 1 official teaser got 15 million views, whilst the main trailer got 28 million views. Pretty monstrous interest. Yeah, Game of Thrones shat the bed with their ending, but it was clear the franchise was able to bank on the legacy a lot more and try to gather up interest. However, that interest for Season 2 fell off way harder than I think I was expecting, but it did some okay numbers anyway. The official teaser posted 10 million views, which is still good, and then they seemingly split the numbers across 3 separate trailers. They had a main trailer and then a black and green trailer to build up the choose the side mentality. The main trailer got a meager 7 million views, the greens got 9.3 million, and the blacks 11 million. Not too shabby across the board, and whilst it's still getting good views for just your regular sort of show, it's a massive fall off for the overall world of Westeros. I suspect that they knew this would be the case though, and so I reckon they're probably happy enough with these numbers. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, this looks awesome, and I'm honestly looking forward to it far more than I am House of the Dragon Season 3. I think the more they lean on the dragons, the more the plot slows down because their budget just dries up. This though, feels like it would have a similar feeling to early Game of Thrones before it all went to shit, and the focus solely shifted to dragons and zombies. I'm just keen. I can't wait for January to see if my hype is justified. Hopefully it doesn't take another 3 years to film a second season though. With all that being said, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the trailer? Did you like it? Hate it? Has it got you hyped up for Season 1? Maybe not. I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.